I'm just your average, snack-loving, adventure-chasing golden dog. And guess what? My best friend Dad and I go on the coolest adventures. We've got a big black Jeep named Birdie, a whole world to explore, and, of course, plenty of snacks. Every week is a brand new tail-wagging adventure. You never know what we'll find. Hidden carrots, new friends, maybe even buried treasure. So grab your hat, pack your snacks, and come with us.
Harley and Dad's epic Canadian tour, Newfoundland and Labrador. Oliver the RV rumbled off the ferry and onto solid ground with a final contented purr. The air smelled different right away, saltier, crispier, and a little bit like stories. Harley scrambled up onto the dash, nose quivering against the glass, tail sweeping the map pockets like a metronome. "Dad," he yipped, "we made it! But why does the sign say Newfoundland and Labrador? 2 names? Did someone forget to pick just one? Should I help? I have excellent naming skills. For example, Snackland." Dad chuckled and tipped his straw hat. "Good question, buddy. Newfoundland is the big island we're on now. Labrador is the huge mainland region up north, attached to the rest of Canada. They're different places, but together they make one province." Harley blinked. "So it's like a sandwich, 2 tasty pieces that go together." "Exactly," Dad said, "and both sides are full of history and wild, rugged beauty." Harley considered this seriously. What if one side wants to be crunchy and the other wants to be smooth? "Then you get a peanut butter and jam," Dad said, "and that's pretty great, too." From the bed in the back, a soft rustling replied. Harley turned to see his Plushie family nestled in their usual traveling snuggle. Ogie the Ogopogo, Bruce the Bison, Scotty the Dino, Snorty the Pig, Beatrice the Butterfly, Bubbles the Beluga, Lobby the Lobster, Fiddler the Fox, and Edward the Potato. They jiggled gently as Oliver took the first curve. "Rest up, team," Harley whispered. "Today smells like adventure, and possibly snacks. Mostly adventure, with snacks." They followed a road that seemed to enjoy meeting the ocean again and again, ducking behind cliffs and reappearing beside foaming waves. Brightly painted houses sprinkled the hills like confetti. Gulls wheeled overhead, laughing in their gull way, which sounds exactly like "ha, ha, ha," if you're a dog who enjoys jokes. Dad slowed as they crested a hill. "There's St. John's down there," he said. "Oldest city in North America, founded by the English. Jellybean Row, Signal Hill, Cape Spear not far, easternmost point in North America." Harley pressed his forehead to the glass and fogged it into a circle. "Jelly beans? Where? Do they have carrot flavored?" "Those are house colors, not candy," Dad said with a smile. "We'll drive by." And they did. Harley stared, dazzled. The houses stood shoulder to shoulder in yellow, blue, green, and red, the kind of bright you get when you refuse to let fog win. People waved as Oliver rolled past. A gentle drizzle painted everything shiny. "It looks like happiness had a paint fight," Harley breathed. Signal Hill was next, windy enough that Harley's ears did their own semaphore dance. Dad parked, and they walked a path edged with scrubby grass and salt-tough flowers. The hill rose like a fortress, and the sea below rolled its big shoulders. "This is where Marconi received one of the first transatlantic wireless signals in 1901, Dad said. An S in Morse code." Harley puffed out his chest. "I, too, can send an S." He lifted his head and gave a heroic "S." The wind flung the sound into the sky. "Close enough," Dad laughed. They stood, hats and ears tugged by the gusts, looking out at the white-lipped swells. Far off specks moved. Boats, birds, maybe the kind of whales that write secret songs under the waves. The ocean's voice rumbled up the cliff and hummed in their bones. "It's so big," Harley whispered, "like a giant blue blanket for the world." "It is," Dad said, "and it's kept travelers company for a very long time." Harley's eyes got bright. "Travelers like Vikings?" Dad's smile widened. "Yes. In fact, farther up the coast, there's a place called Meadows. It's a real archaeological site where Norse explorers landed over 1,000 years ago." Harley froze like a dog blinked into legend. "Viking puppies came here too?" "They probably had dogs too," Dad said. "Of course they did," Harley said solemnly. "All the best explorers bring snacks and dogs." Dad nodded, eyes twinkling. That would explain the brave ideas and the love of long journeys. Harley beamed. "We're on a Viking mission. Quick, fetch me a helmet with horns and snack holders." "No horns on Viking helmets," Dad said. "That's a myth." Harley sighed with dignity. "Fine, but I'm keeping the snack holders." They drove west and north, where the land became bigger in its silences. At Gros Morne National Park, mountains sat with that ancient patience mountains have, and a fjord scored the earth like a poem written by ice. They hiked a gentle trail into a valley where rocks told time with their colors, rust-red tablelands and green slopes and gray bones of the earth. Harley placed a paw on a flat stone and whispered, "I name thee Pancake Rock. You are brave and flat." Dad read a sign aloud about how the rocks had once been under the ocean and pushed up from the Earth's inside. "It's one of the best places to see the planet's insides on the outside," he said. Harley gasped. "Our planet turned itself inside out? That's exactly what a pancake does when it flips." He gave a scholarly nod. "Science confirmed." They picnicked beside a stream so clear you could see the thoughts of pebbles. Harley snacked on apple slices and a carrot stick, while Dad sipped tea from a thermos. The wind leaned in, curious but polite. A pair of hikers passed and smiled at Harley, who gave them his best "I am a professor of fjords" face. "After Gros Morne," Dad said, "we'll keep north for the Viking site." Harley adjusted his invisible cape. "For exploration, for history, for snacks." At Meadows, the air smelled of grass and stories. Low turf-roofed buildings huddled together like old friends. Inside, the rooms were dim and warm with the idea of fires. Dad read another sign. The Norse had repaired boats, maybe built new ones, explored beyond, and then left. Their marks remained in the earth, charcoal, nails, threads of iron and wood, and in the imaginations of every visitor who ever leaned close. Harley listened hard. He could almost hear hammer taps and far-off laughter. "Do you think they told bedtime tales about whales?" he asked, "and about meeting friendly foxes and snack-loving puppies?" "I hope so," Dad said. "People have always told stories, especially at the edges of the world." A guide in a knitted hat smiled at Harley. "He'd make a fine lookout," he said. Harley stood tall. "A Viking pup never blinks," he said, blinking immediately, because that's how eyes work. They stepped outside where the grass sloped down to the sea. The wind played the old music, the kind that creaks in ropes and snaps in sails and makes you wrap your coat a little tighter even when you're not cold. It must have been hard to leave your home and come to a newfound land, Harley said softly. Then his mouth fell open. Dad! New-found land! Pretty much, Dad smiled. Early sailors literally wrote Newfoundland on their charts, a land they'd found, and the name stuck. Of course, people like the Micmac, Inuit, and Bothuk lived here long before, and around here they say it Newfoundland. Give the last word a little hop. They turned east again, following the coast where the ocean kept tucking surprises into coves. Sun that broke through clouds and bright coins, a land of wildflowers and a place you'd expect only rocks, a boat painted the color of a cherry candy. Near a small harbor town, a sign advertised a boat tour to see puffins and whales. Puffins! Harley squeaked, vibrating like a small joyful blender. Birds wearing tuxedos! Witless Bay area is known for them, Dad said. Want to try our luck? Puffins, yes. Whales, yes. Snacks for safety, yes. Oliver hummed approvingly as they parked. Dad packed the day bag, binoculars, water, a granola bar for Dad, an emergency carrot for Harley, and a spare sweater for wind that changes its mind. Harley checked on the Plushie family. Team, he said softly, guard Oliver and practice your best whale songs. Bubbles puffed up proudly. Even as a plushie, she had a way of looking aquatic. On the boat, the captain pointed to a scatter of rocky islands. Keep your eyes peeled, he called. Puffins are quick. The boat nudged through a bristle of waves. Harley leaned over the side, safely, with Dad's hand on his harness, and sniffed the sea. It smelt like cold and laughter and secrets you could hear if you listened long enough. Look, Dad said, passing the binoculars. Harley squinted. A puffin zipped low over the water like an arrow dressed for a dance. Another popped up out of a wave, as if the wave had decided it needed a beak and opinions. They're perfect, Harley whispered, like cartoon pencils that draw the ocean. Then the captain shouted, "Blow!" and everyone turned. A spout! A whale surfaced, rolled, and slid back into blue. Harley forgot how to blink again. That was a whale, he said, in a very calm voice that sounded exactly like a squeal. Dad squeezed his shoulder. You saw a whale, buddy. The whale surfaced again, closer. Harley and the whale looked at each other in the way two very different creatures sometimes do, and realized they share something, an awareness of the big water, a love of moving through it in their own ways. Harley lifted a paw. The whale lifted a tail. Friends, Harley declared. Back on the dock, they stepped into a small, bright souvenir shop to warm up. It was full of knit hats, wooden boats, and postcards. But what stopped Harley in his tracks was a shelf of plush puffins. Soft, round, and dapper, each one wore a bright little beak like it had dressed up just to say hello. Oh, Harley breathed, heart melting like butter on a pancake. Dad, Dad, Dad! That puffin is smiling at me with his whole beak. Dad picked one up. The puffin's stitched eyes sparkled with cheerful curiosity. What should we name him? Harley pressed his nose to the plushie's beak. Peppi, he declared. Peppi the Puffin. He looks like the kind of friend who makes you brave, and also does excellent tiny hops. Harley brought Peppi into Oliver. Welcome to the family, Peppi. Harley gave a formal introduction. Peppi, everyone. Everyone, Peppi. Please teach each other to swim, flap, walk, fly, or whatever potatoes do." Peppi immediately demonstrated a courageous 2-inch hop. Harley applauded. They spent a windy morning at Cape Spear, where the ocean seemed to breathe right beside you, and the lighthouse stood like a note held high in a song. "Easternmost point," Dad said. "If you walked straight into the sunrise, the next land would be Ireland." Harley stared at the horizon. "That's a lot of swimming. I can do puddles." "Puddles are noble," Dad agreed. That evening, they followed fiddle music to a community hall. A kitchen party had spilled into the room. Stomping feet, laughing neighbors, hands clapping time. Someone pressed a wooden spoon into Harley's paw and a little drum into Dad's hands, and before long they were part of the rhythm, Harley's tail keeping an enthusiastic beat. A baker in an apron offered Dad a plate. "Fish cakes and toutons," she said cheerfully. "Butter and molasses if you like." Dad grinned. "Yes, please." Harley sniffed politely. "Do you perchance have a carrot cake? Emphasis on carrot." "Got you covered," she smiled, producing a small square just for him. Carrot cake, no raisins, extra frosting. Harley's eyes went starry. As the band swelled, Dad leaned down. "Remember how you said this place had 2 names, and you wondered if that meant 2 hearts?" "I did," said Harley through a mouthful of cloud-like frosting. "I think maybe it does," Dad said softly, watching the room. 2 hearts that beat together, one on the island, one on the mainland, and everyone dances to the same song. Harley rested his head against Dad's leg and listened. He could hear it, the shared beat. It sounded like boots on wooden floors and waves in coves and the hum of Oliver at dusk. It sounded like people who keep each other warm on long winters, and like whales who remember the old paths, and like puffins who come back to burrows carved into cliffside peat. It sounded like Viking courage, threaded into the present like bright yarn. The next morning, clouds stacked themselves into a dramatic ceiling, and the wind announced itself as a kind of wind that means business. Dad steered Oliver toward St. John's again, passing coves where the water chewed politely on rocks, and a village where laundry, blue pants, red shirts, fluttered brave as flags along a line. "Dad," Harley asked at last, watching the road signs count down, "you said we have to end this leg at an airport." Dad nodded, keeping one hand steady on the wheel. "We do. The next place on our tour is far enough that we'll need to fly. Pack light, carry on only. The Plushie crew will guard Oliver till we meet again. Oliver is going to travel by train and meet us in Whitehorse." Harley's ears dipped. "Can Oliver come in the overhead bin?" "I don't think so," Dad said, smiling. "But we'll tuck him into a good spot. What do you think of Newfoundland and Labrador?" Harley snuggled in sleepily beside Dad. "I learned Newfoundland and Labrador is one province with 2 hearts, an island and a mainland. I saw Jellybean Row, which is not actually candy, Signal Hill, where Marconi's S zipped across the ocean, and at Gros Morne I saw the planet upside down. Oh, and Meadows, where the real Vikings lived, and puffins, and whales, and a kitchen party after Cape Spear. It was pretty cool, actually." The next morning, they parked near the St. John's Airport and tidied Oliver. Maps tucked, kettle secured, Plushie pile fluffed. Harley set up a Plushie family meeting on the bed. "Important mission," he whispered. "You'll guard Oliver while we fly north. Snacks are in the cupboard. Emergency carrot is also in the cupboard." The plushies looked very brave in their quiet, plushy way. As they headed for the terminal, Harley tugged at Dad. "Where are we going, Dad?" "Nunavut," Dad said, straight-faced. "Nunavut?" Harley yelped. "If we're going to Nunavut, where's the rest of it?" Dad laughed. "Different word, buddy. Nunavut. It means our land in Inuktitut. We're flying to Gjoa Haven, an Inuit community on King William Island in the Northwest Passage. It's named after a real explorer ship." Harley's eyes went wide. "Explorer town? Real Arctic stories?" "And real Arctic friends," Dad said. "We'll listen, learn, and be good guests." They paused at the window as a small plane skimmed the runway and lifted into the sky. Harley pressed his nose to the glass. "Okay," he whispered. "None of it. All of it." Dad squeezed his shoulder. "All of it." A friendly crew member waved them over and took Dad's duffel bag, stowing it aboard a small plane. Dad helped Harley up the stairs and into a seat. The pilot looked at them. "Ready?" Dad looked down at Harley, who glanced out the window, waved a final goodbye to Oliver, then turned back to Dad, nodding. "Ready," Dad said, putting an arm around Harley. "Let's do this, buddy." "Best trip ever," Harley said softly as the plane lifted off from the ground. And with that, they were off and on their way to their next adventure.
What a great day that turned out to be! Best day ever! I can't wait until next week when we go on another adventure. Make sure you click subscribe so you can join me, and like my video too, please.